The year was 2247, and humanity had reached heights once thought impossible. Space travel was no longer a dream, but a reality. Earth's unified fleet patrolled the stars, ensuring peace across dozens of colonized planets. Among these vast fleets of ships, one stood out: the Aegis Dawn, commanded by Captain J-Ho Lee. A man known for his calm demeanor and sharp mind, J-Ho had earned respect not just for his tactical brilliance, but also for his unwavering sense of duty. On a quiet day aboard the Aegis Dawn, as it drifted through the endless void between star systems, something unusual happened. Deep in the ship's communication bay, Lieutenant Ji-Eun Kim sat at her station, monitoring the endless streams of data flowing from the universe outside. She was a skilled xenolinguist, someone who specialized in understanding alien languages, though she rarely got to use her skills. Most days were filled with routine scans of empty space or faint signals from distant stars. But today, everything changed. Ji-Eun noticed something odd, a faint signal coming from deep space. At first, she dismissed it as interference, perhaps leftover static from nearby cosmic events. But when she ran diagnostics, the signal remained clear. It wasn't random noise, it was deliberate. Her fingers danced over the console as she isolated the transmission. The words came through slowly, distorted but intelligible. "We are dying. Help us." Her heart raced. This wasn't just another stray message bouncing around space. Someone, or something, was calling for help. Excited and nervous, Ji-Eun immediately alerted Captain J-Ho. He arrived at the communications bay moments later, his expression serious as he listened to the recording. His dark eyes narrowed slightly as the voice repeated its plea. "Where is this coming from?" J-Ho asked, leaning closer to the screen, displaying the signal's origin. "It's coming from a remote sector," Ji-Eun replied, pointing to a blinking dot on the map. "Beyond any known human territory. We've never explored that region before." J-Ho crossed his arms, thinking carefully. Such a discovery could mean anything: an opportunity, a threat, or even a trap. Humanity had encountered alien life, only a handful of times, and while some interactions had been peaceful, others had ended in disaster. Still, ignoring a distress call went against everything the unified fleet stood for. "We need to investigate," J-Ho said finally. "Prepare a fleet. 20 ships should do it, and make sure we're ready for anything." Word spread quickly among the crew. Everyone knew what was happening. They were heading into uncharted territory, responding to a mysterious cry for help. For many, excitement outweighed fear. After all, this was why they joined the fleet, to explore the unknown and protect those in need. Lieutenant Ji-Eun felt a mix of emotions. On one hand, she was thrilled to put her skills to the test. If there truly were aliens sending this message, she might finally get to communicate with them directly. On the other hand, something felt off. The simplicity of the message troubled her. Why would an advanced civilization send such a vague plea? Shouldn't they have included more details about their situation? Despite her doubts, Ji-Eun focused on preparing for the mission. She gathered every piece of equipment she thought might be useful: translation devices, audio recorders, and even old-fashioned notebooks. You never knew what you'd encounter in space. As the fleet assembled, engineer Hyun-Soo Park checked and rechecked the ship's systems. Hyun-Soo was a perfectionist, always tinkering with engines and circuits to ensure peak performance. Today, however, he worked with extra care. Whatever lay ahead, the fleet needed to be ready. Finally, the moment came. With the Aegis Dawn leading the way, 20 ships entered hyperspace, leaving behind the familiar constellations of human-controlled space. Hours passed as they traveled faster than light, hurtling toward the source of the signal. Inside each vessel, tension hung thick in the air. Conversations were hushed, and everyone moved with purpose. When they emerged from hyperspace, the scene before them took their breath away. A barren planet loomed in the distance, orbiting a dim red sun. Its surface was cracked and lifeless, covered in jagged mountains and deep valleys. Scattered across the landscape were strange structures. Tall, spires made of shimmering metal that reflected the weak sunlight like mirrors. It looked both beautiful and eerie, like a ghost town frozen in time. Captain J-Ho ordered the fleet to maintain a safe distance while scouts investigated further. Small shuttles detached from the larger ships, carrying teams equipped to explore the planet's surface. Ji-un joined one of these teams, eager to see the ruins up close. As their shuttle descended, she pressed her face against the window, marveling at the alien architecture. The structures seemed impossibly intricate, their designs resembling circuit boards etched onto massive scales. Once they landed, the team stepped out cautiously. The air was thin and cold, forcing them to rely on their suits' life support systems. Dust swirled around their boots as they approached the nearest building. Up close, the metallic walls appeared weathered, pockmarked by centuries of exposure to harsh conditions. Strange symbols covered every surface, glowing faintly despite the lack of power. Ji-un activated her scanner, analyzing the markings. To her surprise, they weren't mere decorations. They formed a language, an alien language. Her pulse quickened as she began translating fragments. Though incomplete, the text hinted at warnings and pleas for assistance. One phrase stood out: "Do not trust appearances." "What does that mean?" asked one of the soldiers accompanying her. "I'm not sure yet," Ji-un admitted, "but I think it's important." Before she could dig deeper, another member of the team called out. They had found what appeared to be a control panel embedded in the wall. Engineer Hyun-soo rushed over, examining the device. With Ji-un's guidance, he managed to reactivate it. A holographic projection flickered to life, showing shadowy figures speaking in guttural tones. Their faces were obscured, but their urgency was clear. Using her translation software, Ji-un pieced together parts of their message. It reinforced the earlier warning: danger lurks beyond sight. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, the projection vanished. Back aboard the Aegis Dawn, Ji-un reported her findings to Captain J-Ho. Together, they reviewed the footage, trying to make sense of it. Was this a genuine distress call, or had they stumbled into something far more sinister? Before they could decide, alarms blared throughout the ship. Unknown vessels had appeared without warning, surrounding the fleet. Through the viewport, J-Ho watched as sleek, organic-looking ships encircled them. Their hulls pulsed faintly, almost like living creatures. Clearly, they weren't here to chat. "Raise shields," J-Ho ordered calmly, "and prepare for the worst." As the alien ships closed in, Ji-un couldn't shake the feeling that they had walked straight into a trap. But it was too late to turn back now. Whatever awaited them, they would face it together. The tension aboard the Aegis Dawn was palpable. The alien ships moved with eerie precision, their sleek forms gliding effortlessly through space. They didn't fire immediately, but instead formed a tight perimeter around the human fleet. Captain J-Ho Lee stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the viewport as he studied their movements. He had faced danger countless times before, but this felt different. These weren't pirates or rogue factions. They were an unknown force, and that made them unpredictable. "Status report," J-Ho said, his voice steady despite the weight of the situation. "All systems online, shields at full capacity," replied Lieutenant Subin Lim, one of the pilots stationed on the bridge. "Their weapons are powered up, but they haven't fired yet." J-Ho nodded. For now, it seemed the aliens were content to observe rather than attack. Still, he couldn't afford to let his guard down. Turning to Lieutenant Ji-un Kim, who had joined him on the bridge, he asked, "Any progress decoding their language?" "Not yet," Ji-un admitted, clutching her tablet tightly. "But I'm working on it. Their designs and symbols might give us clues about how they communicate." J-Ho considered this for a moment. If humanity wanted to survive this encounter, communication would be key. Misunderstandings in space often led to disaster, and J-Ho wasn't about to let that happen under his watch. "Open a channel," he instructed. "Let's try talking to them." Subin worked quickly, broadcasting a neutral message in multiple languages: English, Mandarin, Spanish, and even some basic binary code. When no response came, J-Ho decided to take a more direct approach. Using pre-recorded phrases translated into tones mimicking universal sounds, he sent another message. "We come in peace. We mean no harm." For a few agonizing moments, there was nothing but silence. Then, without warning, one of the alien ships broke formation and accelerated toward the Aegis Dawn. Its surface shimmered unnervingly, almost like liquid metal rippling under light. As it drew closer, energy crackled along its hull, and everyone braced for impact. But instead of attacking, the ship stopped just short of colliding with the Aegis Dawn. A beam of light shot out from its underside, striking the flagship's hull. Alarms blared again, but oddly, none of the ship's systems were damaged. Instead, the light seemed to scan the vessel, probing its defenses. "They're analyzing us," muttered Engineer Yun-Soo Park, who had rushed to the bridge after hearing the commotion. "Whatever that beam is, it's gathering data." Jae-ho clenched his jaw. Being scrutinized like lab rats wasn't exactly reassuring. But if the aliens were curious enough to study them, perhaps they weren't entirely hostile. Still, he needed answers, and fast. "Keep trying to talk to them," Jae-ho ordered. "Use every frequency we've got. Show them we're intelligent beings." Ji-Yun sprang into action, adjusting her equipment to send a new series of signals. This time, she included mathematical patterns. A sequence of prime numbers followed, by geometric shapes. It was a gamble, but mathematics was considered a universal language. If the aliens understood logic, they might recognize the effort. Minutes dragged on, each one feeling longer than the last. Just when hope began to wane, the alien ship responded. A low-frequency pulse echoed across the void, carrying a pattern eerily similar to Ji-Yun's transmission. Excited whispers spread among the crew. Could this be the beginning of communication? Encouraged by the response, Ji-Yun doubled her efforts. She fine-tuned her devices, attempting to establish a two-way dialogue. Slowly but surely, fragments of meaning emerged. The aliens' language was complex, filled with layered meanings and subtle nuances. But beneath the complexity lay a structure Ji-Yun could work with. "They're using tonal shifts to convey intent," Ji-Yun explained to Jae-ho. "It's like music mixed with speech. I think I can replicate it." With Hyun-Soo's help, she programmed the ship's synthesizers to mimic the alien tones. When the next message went out, it carried not just numbers and shapes, but also a melodic cadence designed to match the alien's style. The response was immediate and alarming. One of the alien ships suddenly veered off course, firing a projectile that struck the shield of a nearby human vessel. Though the shield held firm, panic erupted among the crew. "What happened?" Jae-ho demanded, his calm demeanor slipping slightly. "I don't know," Ji-Yun exclaimed, frantically reviewing the exchange. "I thought we were making progress." Before anyone could react further, the rest of the alien fleet joined the fray. Energy blasts rained down on the human ships, forcing them to scatter. Shields flared brightly as they absorbed hit after hit, but it was only a matter of time before the relentless assault overwhelmed them. "Return fire!" Jae-ho commanded, his voice firm once more. "But aim to disable, not destroy. We don't want to escalate this unnecessarily." The human fleet retaliated, targeting engines and weapon arrays on the alien ships. Precision strikes disabled several vessels, but the attackers showed no signs of retreating. In fact, their behavior grew increasingly erratic, as though driven by something beyond rational thought. Amidst the chaos, Ji-Yun noticed something peculiar. The aliens' attacks lacked coordination. Some ships fired indiscriminately, while others hesitated, almost as if unsure of their actions. It was as though they were being controlled by an external force. "Captain," she called out urgently, "I think these aliens aren't acting on their own. Something, or someone, is influencing them." Jae-ho frowned. That theory aligned with the cryptic warnings they'd uncovered earlier. Do not trust appearances, and danger lurks beyond sight. If the aliens weren't truly responsible for the aggression, then humanity might have stumbled into a much larger conflict. "We need to find a way to break through," Jae-ho said decisively. "If they're being manipulated, maybe we can reach them directly." Back in the communications bay, Ji-Yun worked tirelessly, tweaking her transmissions to bypass whatever was controlling the aliens. She incorporated elements of the holographic recording she discovered on Kiros 7, embedding phrases like freedom and resistance into her messages. Each attempt felt like grasping at straws, but she refused to give up. Meanwhile, medic Yoon-Jin Choi tended to injured crew members brought to the infirmary. Many suffered minor wounds from debris caused by the battle, but others exhibited strange symptoms. Some complained of hearing faint whispers, while others claimed to see shadowy figures moving just out of sight. At first, Yoon-jin dismissed these reports as stress-induced hallucinations. After all, combat situations often triggered such reactions. But then she started experiencing the same sensations herself. As she walked through the corridors, she swore she heard voices murmuring in languages she didn't understand. Shadows seemed to flicker at the edges of her vision, vanishing whenever she turned to look. Shaken, she confided in Ji-eun during a brief respite. "I don't think it's just stress," Yoon-jin whispered. "Something's affecting us. Maybe it's tied to those aliens." Ji-eun nodded grimly. Whatever was happening, it reinforced her belief that the aliens weren't the real enemy. Something far more insidious lurked behind the scenes. Back on the battlefield, the tide began to shift. Human ingenuity and teamwork allowed them to hold their ground against the relentless assault. Pilots Subin and Min-ki Cho executed daring maneuvers, weaving between enemy ships and delivering crippling blows. Ground teams coordinated perfectly, ensuring repairs kept pace with damage. Despite their resilience, however, the human fleet couldn't sustain the fight indefinitely. Supplies were running low, and fatigue was setting in. Jae-ho knew they needed a breakthrough, and soon. Then, unexpectedly, it came. One of the alien ships broke formation and approached the Aegis Dawn, its movements hesitant compared to the others. When it opened a channel, a distorted voice spoke, not in guttural tones but in broken English. "You must help us." The words sent shockwaves through the bridge. Everyone froze, staring at the screen displaying the alien ship. Was this a trick? Or had they finally reached the true source of the distress signal? Jae-ho leaned forward, addressing the speaker cautiously. "Who are you? What do you want?" The reply was slow and fragmented, but clear enough to understand. "We are enslaved. Parasite controls us. Please, free us." Ji-eun's heart raced. Her suspicions had been correct. The aliens weren't aggressors. They were victims. Whoever, or whatever, was pulling their strings had lured humanity into this trap, hoping to turn them against innocent beings. Jae-ho exchanged a glance with Ji-eun. The weight of the decision rested heavily on his shoulders. Trusting these aliens could mean walking into another ambush, but ignoring their plea would condemn them to a fate worse than death. "Prepare a boarding party," Jae-ho ordered. "We're going to find out the truth, for better or worse." As preparations began, Ji-eun couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping onto a path with no easy return. Yet deep down, she believed they were doing the right thing. Humanity had always thrived on exploration and compassion. Even in the face of uncertainty, those values guided them forward. And so, with courage born of necessity, the humans prepared to meet their mysterious adversaries, not as conquerors, but as potential allies. The boarding party assembled quickly, each member chosen for their unique skills. Leading the team was Sergeant Hae-won Song, a seasoned soldier known for her quick thinking and unshakable resolve. Alongside her were Lieutenant Ji-yeon Kim, whose expertise in alien languages would be crucial, Engineer Hyun-soo Park, tasked with analyzing any technology they encountered, and Medic Yoon-jin Choi, ready to handle injuries or unexpected medical issues. As the shuttle detached from the Aegis Dawn and approached the alien vessel, tension filled the cramped cabin. Everyone was silent, their minds racing with questions. What awaited them inside? Were these aliens truly victims of some unseen parasite, or was this an elaborate ruse? The answers could mean life or death, not just for the boarding party, but for the entire fleet. The alien ship loomed larger as they drew closer, its surface pulsating faintly like living tissue. When the shuttle docked, the hiss of airlock sealing echoed ominously. Hae-won gave a final nod to her team before stepping onto the alien craft. Inside, the environment was unlike anything they had ever experienced. The walls shimmered with bioluminescent patterns that shifted and changed as if alive. Strange tendrils hung from the ceiling, swaying gently despite the lack of wind. The air smelled metallic, tinged with something sharp and unfamiliar. It wasn't hostile exactly, but it certainly wasn't welcoming either. "Stay alert," Haewon whispered, her weapon raised. "We don't know what we're dealing with." Ji-eun moved cautiously behind her, scanning the surroundings with her translation device. She hoped to detect any residual communication signals or linguistic clues that might help them understand the situation better. Meanwhile, Hyun-soo examined the walls, his fingers brushing against the glowing patterns. "This isn't metal," he murmured. "It's organic, like skin or muscle tissue." Yoon-jin shuddered at the thought, but forced herself to focus. If there was a parasite controlling the aliens, understanding its biology could be key to defeating it. They advanced deeper into the ship, following a narrow corridor lined with pulsating veins of light. Every step felt heavier, as though the very air resisted their presence. Then, suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows ahead, a humanoid shape, though distorted and unnaturally tall. Its limbs were elongated, and its head seemed too large for its body. Glowing eyes fixed on the intruders, radiating both curiosity and hostility. Haewon raised her weapon instinctively, but Ji-eun stepped forward, lowering her voice. "Wait, let me try talking first." She activated her translation device, emitting a series of tones modeled after the alien's language. To everyone's relief, the figure paused, tilting its head as if listening. After a moment, it responded with a guttural sound accompanied by flickering lights along its arms. "It's communicating," Ji-eun said excitedly. "I think it understands us." Encouraged, Ji-eun continued the exchange, weaving phrases like freedom and help into her messages. Slowly, the alien's posture relaxed, and it gestured for them to follow. Though wary, the team obeyed, knowing this might be their only chance to uncover the truth. The alien led them to a chamber deep within the ship. Inside, dozens of similar figures stood motionless, their bodies connected to thick, fleshy cables snaking across the floor. At the center of the room loomed a massive cocoon-like structure, pulsating rhythmically. From it emanated a low hum, almost hypnotic in nature. "What is that thing?" Haewon asked, her grip tightening on her weapon. Hyun-soo approached cautiously, examining the cocoon. "It's biological, like everything else here, but it's also feeding. Look at those cables. They're draining energy from the other aliens." Yoon-jin scanned one of the motionless figures with her medical equipment. Her expression darkened. "Their brain activity is suppressed. Whatever's inside that cocoon is controlling them." Ji-eun turned to the guide who had brought them here. Pointing at the cocoon, she asked, "Is this the parasite?" The alien hesitated, then nodded slowly. Its next words came out haltingly, translated through Ji-eun's device. "It consumes. It controls. We cannot resist," Haewon frowned. "If it's controlling them, how did you break free long enough to ask for help?" The alien pointed to a small device embedded in its chest, a pale, crystalline object glowing faintly. "This protects me, temporarily, but it weakens." Understanding dawned on Ji-eun. This crystal acted as a shield, blocking the parasite's influence. Without it, even this alien would succumb again. And judging by the dimming glow, time was running out. "We need to destroy it," Haewon declared firmly. "Whatever that thing is, it's the source of the problem." Hyun-soo shook his head. "Not so fast. If we destroy it without understanding how it works, we risk killing everyone connected to it, including our guide here." Before they could debate further, alarms blared throughout the alien ship. Lights flashed red, and the cocoon began to pulse faster, as if reacting to their presence. The motionless aliens stirred, their eyes snapping open simultaneously. Their gazes locked onto the humans, filled with malice. "They're waking up," Yoon-jin cried, backing away. The guide grabbed Ji-eun's arm urgently. "Go now! Warn your people! The parasite knows you're here!" Haewon didn't hesitate. "Fall back! Everyone to the shuttle!" The team sprinted down the corridor, pursued by the reanimated aliens. Their movements were jerky yet alarmingly fast, driven by the parasite's will. HFY fired warning shots to keep them at bay, but the creatures showed no fear, advancing relentlessly. As they reached the docking bay, Hyun-soo spotted something alarming, a swarm of smaller insect-like drones emerging from vents in the walls. These weren't part of the original alien design. They were extensions of the parasite itself. "Those things are trouble," he shouted, blasting one with his sidearm. "Get to the shuttle." They piled into the shuttle just as the drones closed in, slamming the hatch shut behind them. Outside, the aliens pounded against the hull, their shrieks echoing eerily. The shuttle's engines roared to life, lifting off just as the cocoon unleashed a wave of bioelectric energy that fried nearby systems. Back aboard the Aegis Dawn, Captain J-Ho, Lee listened intently as the boarding party reported their findings. His face grew grim as they described the parasite and its horrifying control over the aliens. "So we're not fighting the aliens themselves," J-Ho summarized. "We're fighting whatever's inside that cocoon." "That's right," Ji-eun confirmed. "And based on what we saw, it's intelligent. It knew we were coming." J-Ho rubbed his temples, thinking hard. Destroying the parasite seemed like the obvious solution, but doing so without harming the aliens, or risking retaliation from the parasite itself, was a monumental challenge. "We need a plan," he said finally. "Something that targets the parasite without causing collateral damage." Hyun-soo spoke up. "What if we use the crystal, the one protecting our guide? If we can replicate its properties, maybe we can disrupt the parasite's hold?" "It's worth a shot," J-Ho agreed. "But we'll need more data. Ji-eun, work with Yoon-jin to analyze the crystal, see if we can mass-produce it. In the meantime, we prepare for another strike." Over the next few hours, the crew worked tirelessly. Ji-eun and Yoon-jin studied the crystal under microscopes, identifying its unique molecular structure. Hyun-soo collaborated with engineers to develop a prototype device capable of replicating its effects. Meanwhile, pilots Soo-bin Lim and Min-ki Cho ran simulations, planning strategies for a second assault. Despite their efforts, morale aboard the fleet remained strained. The whispers and shadows reported earlier had grown worse, affecting more crew members each day. Some claimed to hear voices urging them to surrender, while others swore they saw ghostly figures moving through the corridors. Even J-Ho began to feel a creeping sense of unease, though he kept it hidden beneath his composed exterior. Finally, progress was made. Using materials scavenged from Kairos 7's ruins, Hyun-soo completed a prototype device designed to emit a frequency similar to the crystal's protective field. Tests showed promise. It temporarily disrupted the parasite's influence during controlled experiments. However, scaling it up for battlefield use would require precision timing and coordination. J-Ho called a meeting with his senior officers to outline the plan. "We'll deploy the device directly into the cocoon," he explained. "Once activated, it should sever the parasite's connection to the aliens, but we'll only have a short window to act. If the parasite regains control, we'll lose our advantage." HFY nodded. "I'll lead the strike team. We'll get in, plant the device, and get out before they can retaliate. And I'll coordinate communications," Ji-eun added. "If we can maintain contact with the freed aliens, we might convince them to fight alongside us." With preparations complete, the fleet launched another attack. This time, their objective was clear: infiltrate the alien ships, neutralize the parasite, and turn the tide of the conflict. As the battle raged around them, HFY's team boarded the same alien vessel they'd visited earlier. The cocoon awaited them, its pulsations growing frantic as if sensing their approach. With Hyun-soo monitoring the device remotely, HFY planted it near the base of the structure. "Activating now," Hyun-soo announced over the comms. A high-pitched whine filled the chamber as the device powered up. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a deafening crackle, the cocoon convulsed violently. The battlefield was chaos. Human and alien forces fought side by side, their combined strength slowly turning the tide against the parasite's control. Explosions lit up the void of space as ships clashed, weapons firing relentlessly. Inside, the alien vessels, freed aliens worked tirelessly to disable systems hijacked by the parasite, while human strike teams provided cover. Despite the progress, the parasite wasn't giving up easily. Its influence lingered, corrupting everything it touched. Back aboard the Aegis Dawn, Captain J-Ho Lee stood on the bridge, his eyes scanning the tactical display. The situation was improving, but not fast enough. The parasite's main cocoon, the one Haywan's team had targeted, was still alive, its tendrils spreading through nearby ships like a disease. Worse, the whispers that had plagued the crew were growing louder, more insistent. Even Jae-ho could feel them now, faint murmurs tugging at the edges of his mind. "We're running out of time," he muttered under his breath. Turning to Lieutenant Ji-eun Kim, who was monitoring communications, he asked, "Any updates from the aliens?" Ji-eun nodded, her fingers flying across her tablet. "They're holding their ground, but many are still under the parasite's control. Some of them are trying to send us coordinates. It looks like they've located the parasite's central hive." Jae-ho's brow furrowed. A central hive meant a single point of origin for the parasite's power. If they could destroy it, they might end this nightmare once and for all. But getting there wouldn't be easy. The hive was buried deep within Kiros 7, the barren planet where the distress signal had originated. Reaching it would require navigating treacherous terrain and facing untold dangers. "Prepare a landing party," Jae-ho ordered. "We'll take the fight to the surface. If we can neutralize the hive, we might save both our fleets." Ji-eun hesitated. "Captain, are you sure? That planet feels wrong, like it's alive." "I know," Jae-ho replied grimly. "But if we don't act now, none of us will make it out alive." Minutes later, a shuttle carrying Jae-ho, Ji-eun, engineer Hyun-soo Park, medic Yoon-jin Choi, and a small contingent of soldiers descended toward Kiros 7. As they approached, the planet's cracked surface loomed larger, its jagged mountains casting long shadows in the dim red sunlight. The air was thick with dust, obscuring visibility as they landed near what appeared to be an entrance to an underground structure. "This must lead to the hive," Haywan said, gesturing toward a gaping fissure in the ground. Strange symbols glowed faintly along its edges, pulsating in time with the distant hum emanating from below. "Stay sharp," Jae-ho warned. "We don't know what's waiting for us down there." The team entered cautiously, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The tunnel walls were slick with moisture, and the air smelled acrid, almost suffocating. Every step echoed unnaturally, as though the planet itself was listening. As they ventured deeper, the glowing symbols became more frequent, forming intricate patterns that seemed to shift when no one was looking directly at them. Hyun-soo examined the walls closely, his expression troubled. "This isn't just decoration. It's part of the parasite's network. These patterns are feeding it information, maybe even tracking us." Yoon-jin shivered. She could hear the whispers again, louder than ever. They weren't random sounds. They were words, fragmented sentences spoken in languages she didn't understand. Her hands trembled as she adjusted her medical scanner, trying to focus on anything else. "Keep moving," Jae-ho urged. "We need to find the core before it realizes we're here." After what felt like hours, the tunnel opened into a massive cavern. At its center stood the hive, a towering, pulsating mass of organic material that resembled a grotesque heart. Thick veins of light coursed through its surface, branching out into the surrounding rock. Smaller cocoons hung from the ceiling, each containing an alien figure trapped in stasis. The hum was deafening now, vibrating through their bones. "It's beautiful," Ji-eun whispered despite herself. "And horrifying." Before anyone could respond, the hive reacted. The veins of light flared brightly and tendrils shot out, lashing at the intruders. Haywan fired her weapon, severing one of the tendrils, but two more took its place. The parasite was awake and angry. "Focus your fire on the base!" Jae-ho shouted. "That's where its power comes from!" The team rallied, unleashing a barrage of energy blasts and projectiles. The hive writhed in response, releasing swarms of insect-like drones that attacked relentlessly. Yoon-jin administered stimulants to keep everyone alert, her hands steady, despite the chaos around her. Hyun-soo worked frantically to recalibrate the prototype device they'd brought, hoping to amplify its effect. As the battle raged, Ji-eun noticed something strange. Amidst the chaos, fragments of the parasite's language began appearing in her translation software. At first they were disjointed, meaningless phrases, but as she pieced them together, a pattern emerged. "It's trying to communicate," she realized aloud. "Not with us directly, but with itself. It's using the hive as a kind of brain." "What does it say?" Jae-ho demanded, dodging a tendril. Ji-eun scanned the data quickly. It's talking about consumption, assimilation. It wants to absorb every living thing to grow stronger, and... She paused, her voice dropping. It thinks we're already too late. Jeho clenched his jaw. He refused to believe that. Humanity had faced impossible odds before and prevailed. They wouldn't give up now. Hyun-soo, how's the device? Coming, he called out. Almost ready, Hyun-soo replied, sweat dripping from his forehead. Just need a few more seconds. Suddenly, the ground shook violently. Cracks spread across the cavern floor as new tendrils erupted, forcing the team to scatter. One of the soldiers fell, caught in the grasp of a tendril. Before anyone could help him, the parasite dragged him into the hive, his screams echoing until they abruptly stopped. No! Haewon shouted, firing wildly at the tendrils. Tears streamed down her face, but she didn't falter. We have to finish this. Finally, Hyun-soo gave the signal. It's ready. Plant it at the base of the hive. Jeho grabbed the device and sprinted toward the hive, dodging attacks as he went. When he reached the base, he slammed the device into place and activated it. A high-pitched whine filled the cavern as the device emitted a powerful pulse, disrupting the parasite's neural network. For a moment, everything froze. The tendrils retracted, the drones fell lifeless to the ground, and the hive's glow dimmed. Then, with a deafening roar, the parasite lashed out one final time, sending shockwaves rippling through the cavern. Get out of here! Jeho yelled, pushing Ji-yoon and the others toward the exit. Now! The team ran as fast as they could, the tunnel collapsing behind them. Rocks tumbled from above, narrowly missing them as they scrambled toward the surface. When they finally burst into the open air, they collapsed onto the dusty ground, gasping for breath. Behind them, the hive exploded in a blinding flash of light. The force of the blast knocked them off their feet, sending debris flying in all directions. When the dust settled, silence fell over Kairos 7. Jeho looked back at the smoking crater where the hive had been. Did we do it? He asked quietly. Hyun-soo checked his instruments. I think so. The parasite's signals are gone. Whatever was controlling those aliens, it's dead. Relief washed over the group, but it was short-lived. Exhaustion set in quickly, and wounds began to ache. Yoon-jin tended to everyone as best she could, her movements mechanical despite her own fatigue. As they prepared to leave, Ji-eun noticed movement near the edge of the crater. A lone alien figure staggered into view, its body battered but alive. It raised a hand weakly, signaling for help. They survived, Ji-eun said, tears welling in her eyes. Some of them made it. The team helped the alien onto the shuttle where it slumped into a seat, breathing heavily. Through broken English, it managed to convey gratitude. Thank you. We owe you everything. Back aboard the Aegis Dawn, the mood was somber, yet hopeful. The parasite was gone, but the scars it left behind would take time to heal. Freed aliens communicated with humanity openly now, sharing stories of centuries spent under the parasite's control. Their resilience inspired awe, even among hardened soldiers like Haewon. Captain Jeho addressed the fleet via comms, his voice firm but compassionate. Today we faced something none of us could have imagined. But we stood together, not just humans, but allies from another world. This victory belongs to all of us. As repairs began and alliances strengthened, Ji-eun couldn't shake the feeling that their journey wasn't over. The parasite had been defeated, yes, but its warnings lingered in her mind. Too late, it had said. What did that mean? Was there more to come? For now, though, humanity celebrated. Against overwhelming odds, they had uncovered the truth, forged unexpected bonds, and proven once again that compassion and courage could overcome even the darkest threats. The victory on Kairos 7 was bittersweet. While the parasite's hive had been destroyed, its influence still lingered in subtle ways. Many freed aliens remained traumatized, their minds scarred by centuries of enslavement. Some struggled to function, without the parasite's constant presence, while others feared it might return. The human fleet faced challenges too, repairing damaged ships, treating wounded crew members, and dealing with the psychological toll of the battle. Despite these hardships, a fragile sense of hope began to take root. Freed aliens and humans worked side by side, sharing resources and knowledge. The aliens, who called themselves the Kale-Threans, revealed fragments of their history through Lieutenant Ji-Eun Kim's translations. They spoke of a once-thriving civilization that had fallen prey to the parasite, a creature they referred to as the Vorthak. According to their legends, the Vorthak wasn't native to Kiros 7. It had come from elsewhere, drifting through space until it found a host world to consume. Captain Jae-ho Lee listened intently as Ji-Eun relayed this information during a briefing aboard the Aegis Dawn. His expression grew darker with each revelation. If the Vorthak could spread beyond Kiros 7, humanity's victory might only be temporary. "We need to understand how it travels," Jae-ho said finally. "If it can infect other planets, we have to stop it before it spreads." Ji-Eun nodded. The Kale-Threans mentioned something about spores, tiny particles the Vorthak releases when threatened. Those spores can survive in space for years, waiting for new hosts. Hyun-Soo Park chimed in, holding up a sample vial containing what looked like glittering dust. "We found traces of these spores inside the hive. If we don't neutralize them, they'll drift into space and start the cycle all over again." The gravity of the situation sank in. Destroying the hive hadn't ended the threat. It had merely delayed it. Unless they acted quickly, the Vorthak's legacy would live on, endangering countless worlds. "We'll need to gather every piece of data we can," Jae-ho declared. "Ji-Eun, work with the Kale-Threans to learn more about the spores. Hyun-Soo, see if you can modify our weapons to target them, and someone needs to scout the surrounding area for signs of contamination." The team dispersed, each member focused on their tasks. Ji-Eun spent hours communicating with the Kale-Threans, piecing together their fragmented memories of the Vorthak's behavior. Their descriptions were chilling. The parasite didn't just consume life, it reshaped entire ecosystems to suit its needs. Forests turned barren, oceans dried up, and atmospheres became toxic under its influence. Entire species vanished within decades of infection. Meanwhile, Hyun-Soo collaborated with engineers to upgrade the fleet's weaponry. Using samples of the spores collected from the hive, he developed a specialized pulse emitter capable of disintegrating them on contact. It wasn't perfect. The L range was limited and the energy requirements were high, but it was better than nothing. As preparations continued, medic Yoon-Jin Choi noticed something troubling among the crew. The whispers and shadows that had plagued them earlier hadn't disappeared entirely. Though fainter now, they persisted, especially among those who had ventured into the hive. Yoon-Jin conducted thorough examinations, searching for physical causes but found none. Whatever was affecting them seemed to stem from exposure to the Vorthak itself. "I think it's residual trauma," Yoon-Jin told Jae-ho during a private meeting. "But it's not just psychological. It's almost like the Vorthak left part of itself behind, embedded in their minds." Jae-ho frowned. "Can you treat it?" "Not yet," Yoon-Jin admitted. "But I'm working on a serum using compounds from Kiros 7's native flora. It might help suppress the symptoms." Time was running out. Scouts reported clusters of spores drifting away from the planet, carried by solar winds. If they reached nearby star systems, the consequences would be catastrophic. With no other options, Jae-ho ordered the fleet to mobilize immediately. The operation began at dawn, or what passed for dawn in Kiros 7's dim light. Pilots Subin Lim and Min-ki Cho led squadrons of fighters into orbit, deploying drones equipped with pulse emitters. These machines swept through clouds of spores, eradicating them with bursts of energy. Ground teams fanned out across the planet, targeting areas where spore concentrations were highest. Haewon Song commanded one such team, her soldiers armed with portable versions of Hyun-Soo's device. Progress was slow but steady. Every patch of contaminated ground cleared brought them closer to ensuring the Vorthak's extinction. Back aboard the Aegis Dawn, Ji-Eun worked tirelessly to decode additional warnings hidden in the Kale-Threans' language. She discovered references to a secondary hive, an emergency backup created by the Vorthak in case its primary lair was destroyed. This revelation sent shockwaves through the fleet. "A backup hive?" Jae-ho asked, his voice tight with urgency. "Where is it?" "It's not on Kiros 7, Ji-Eun replied. "According to the Kale-Threans, it's located deep underground, near the planet's core. They call it the Heart of Shadows." Jae-ho wasted no time. He assembled a strike team consisting of himself, Ji-Yun, Hai-Wan, Hyun-Soo, and Yoon-Jin. Together, they descended into the planet's depths, following coordinates provided by the KL-3ons. The journey was perilous, navigating narrow tunnels filled with unstable rock and pockets of toxic gas. But the stakes were too high to turn back. When they finally reached the heart of shadows, the sight was both awe-inspiring and horrifying. Unlike the chaotic mass of the original hive, this structure was sleek and symmetrical, resembling a massive crystal pulsating with dark energy. Tendrils of shadow writhed around it, feeding off the planet's molten core. "This isn't just a backup," Hyun-Soo whispered, awestruck. "It's like the Vorthak's essence, its true form." Before they could act, the heart reacted. The tendrils lashed out, wrapping around the team and pulling them closer. Yoon-Jin administered her experimental serum, which momentarily dulled the whispers in their minds, giving them clarity. Jae-ho seized the opportunity, planting explosives at the base of the structure. "Fall back!" he shouted as the timer ticked down. They barely made it out in time. Behind them, the heart of shadows erupted in a cascade of darkness, its tendrils collapsing inward before exploding outward in a final desperate burst of energy. The shockwave knocked them off their feet, leaving them dazed but alive. When they returned to the surface, the atmosphere felt lighter, as if a great weight had been lifted. The remaining spores dissipated, unable to survive without the heart's power. For the first time in centuries, Kiros 7 was free. Among the freed KL-3ons, gratitude flowed freely. One of them, a leader named KL-Thra, approached Jae-ho personally. Through Ji-Yoon's translations, KL-Thra expressed profound thanks and offered an alliance. "You saved us," KL-Thra said. "Now we will stand beside you against any future threats." Jae-ho accepted the offer, knowing that unity would be crucial moving forward. As repairs on the fleet neared completion, plans were made to escort the surviving KL-3ons to a safe haven, a distant colony world untouched by the Vorthak's corruption. Yet even as celebrations began, unease lingered. Yoon-Jin's serum had helped suppress the whispers, but they hadn't vanished completely. Ji-Yeon couldn't shake the feeling that the Vorthak's spores might still exist somewhere in the galaxy, waiting to awaken. And Jae-ho knew that their victory, though significant, was only one step in a much larger war. For now, however, humanity and their newfound allies had earned a moment of peace. Together, they had faced unimaginable horrors and emerged stronger. In the vastness of space, where danger lurked around every corner, hope remained their greatest weapon.